Thanks again, David, for hopping on to another episode of Untapped Stories. So the way I usually like to start this for any guest is, I know you've had a great career coaching, just swimming at a high level. We'd love to go back to your origin story and just kind of let our audience know what was sports and whether it's swimming or all sports in general, like for you growing up, and how did that shape the athlete that you eventually became?
Yeah, man. I think. Thanks for having me. By the way, the biggest kind of aha moment that I had was when I, guess what, came to America. Because like swimming, it's like such a in Switzerland when I grew up, like it was such an individual sport. And honestly, like the mindset. Well, I at the time, I always thought like it's the coach's fault, it's my teammates' fault when I didn't succeed. It was everybody else's fault. But then basically because everything did not work out the way I wanted to in Switzerland, I made the decision to go somewhere else. And then for swimming, where do you go? America, right? And I took a recruiting trip to the University of Virginia, and they're like, they were interested in my times and wanted to see me and stuff. And they're like, yeah, we're just gonna fly you out. And I was like, what? You guys are gonna just like fly me over? I was like, yeah, it's called a recruiting trip. I was like, okay, let's go. Right? And then I got there, and it was like such a great experience. I got to see the campus, meet the coaches, meet the team, and then see how this all works for like 2 days, right, 2.5. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then I got to the States, and all of a sudden, everything was about the team. And I was like, holy, can I swear? Well, we're not swearing, right? It's like,
Nice.
holy moly. It was just like crazy. All of a sudden, people hold you accountable, right? They like, they call you out when you're not doing the things right. When you like miss a practice, you go and make it up. And it's just the most amazing way to like grow as a team together. And like, just the idea that you score points for the university, not for yourself, game changer. And I started having like so much fun in America. And I think that was, that swimming, even though you do race in your own lane, even when it is a relay, you're still racing alone. But all the time that you spend practicing,
Yeah.
you do that together. And that was like the big thing. That was the biggest kind of, aha moment that I had in swimming.
I gotta think. I have a couple questions prepared. This wasn't one, but off just that conversation is the culture, I guess, growing up in sports in Switzerland and maybe in Europe in general, is it that much different than the States? Do you think the States put a lot more like emphasis on early teaching, early training? In Switzerland, it's more of like an enjoyment thing, so it feels more individual? Or is that maybe just where you grew up versus where your teammates at UVA grew up?
Did I tell you what? In Switzerland, right? So it used to be, we have the military is mandatory. Okay, so and there's this thing called like sports military for like athletes and stuff. But the guys, the men, have to do the military. And like in America, you have this culture. Okay, I failed in my business like 10 times, and then the 11th time, right, I made like 100 million, and everybody celebrates that. In Switzerland, if you went bankrupt, I didn't know that until a mentor told me. And when you went bankrupt, they even kicked you out of the military. So it's like shame, 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 right? And that is like that. To think big, the people start to think they take you as arrogant or like delusional and stuff. And that's what happened to me, because of course I watched TV and I saw these like superstars on TV, and I was like, okay, I want to win the gold medal. And then the adults around me, they didn't mock me, but they were just like, yeah, like you don't know what it takes, and go to school and we'll see later. And that dream was like squashed, right? And I think in America, you tell me, right? But you guys do think big.
We've heard it on so many different, guess like failure is everything. People, not that they want to fail, but they embrace failure now. I think it's a good mindset for a lot of athletes, but that's a shame. And sounds like you bounced back from it and got to the States anyway and had a great career, but I'm sure you teach that to a lot of the kids you train now, that you don't have to win every single race, and shooting for the stars is actually a good thing.
Yeah, dude, we have to, right? We have to, like in life, right? What's the point in like playing small? Like these kids want to try and see how far they can go, and we got to give them like the mental tools, the support and stuff, so they can go for it, right? And they can still fail. It's part of life, The more often you fail, the better off you'll be in life.
Yeah, and we always we try to get at some of the root of like your coaching principles too. Was there one coach or person or mentor who meant a lot to you in your career, whether it was in Switzerland or in the States?
Man, that's an interesting question. So they were all important, right? So I would say like the one coach in Switzerland was important because he drove me away from Switzerland, right? Even though like we didn't really get along, right? But that led to a good decision on my part. And then, but like the guy, Mark Berendino, he was at UVA, head coach UVA for like 30 years, and he would always say like he was hard, like tough for me, right? He would like sometimes I'll tell you a story. Sometimes I wasn't very good when I was broken down from training. I wasn't very good in those dual meets, and we had like dual meets every week, right? So I wasn't used to just racing in like a normal speedo and stuff. And so sometimes I wouldn't really score a lot of points and swim quite badly, especially in the beginning. And in the team meetings, he would just go off on me and how he was going to bomb Switzerland and send my ass back. You know, I was like, oh my God, what is going on? But he always said, you know, I knew he means well. And he always said, I'm not just going to make you guys and girls better swimmers. I'm going to make you, for the men, he said, I'm going to make you like real man. And I think that's exactly what he did. So, you know, I would say the guy at UVA.
And I guess so for our audience, we have a lot of young athletes and a lot of parents who want to aspire to play in college, whether it's swimming, basketball, soccer, baseball, whatever. It sounds like you had a unique recruiting experience, but what was that like for you, jumping from another country into the U.S. and having to acclimate, and even like picking your college too? How was that whole entire process for you?
Yeah, so I had recruiting trips planned for UVA, Ohio State, and Berkeley. And I took the one to UVA first, and I loved it so much that I committed. So I didn't take the other ones. But then, like, yeah, going there, I mean, I got there, I didn't know anybody. And then again, through swimming, right, those are the people that like took me in and showed me everything. And you know, I mean, I was homesick for a little bit, but then for Christmas I got to go home. And then after that, it was like easy peasy. But like the first couple of months were a bit like, and also like the culture is like this. He was like in our faces, right? And then with me, because I got like almost a full ride, and so they expected a lot from me, and I didn't really perform in the beginning. So there's like, you know, there was a lot of pressure that I wasn't used to, and it was like, okay, what's going on, you know?
And how do you prepare a young athlete for that today? So say if somebody's following in your footsteps and they want to get to that same level, knowing what you know now, what would you tell a young athlete and a parent who probably don't understand those expectations are out there, but once they land on campus, like, you know, they're getting paid to be there, so they have to perform. How do you get an athlete ready for that?
Man, so what I'm observing is like the guys and the girls that are at that level to get a scholarship in like a D1 school, they're a lot tougher than I was back then. Because also like they're already training. I mean, like swimming has evolved so much. When you look at the world records, right? They're like getting crazy fast and like faster and faster and faster. And the kids, I mean, we used to do, you know, volleyball and karate and basketball, even believe it or not, in Switzerland, right? We, you know, play all these sports at like 14, even 15, and not be in the water like that much. Mm-hmm. And now they're like 11, 12, and they're like training 6 times a week, right? They start doing doubles. And so they have a very different mindset than what I had. And I think you just share the stories and you know, and give them as accurate of a picture or description of what it was like there at the time, and then, you know, let them figure it out. But they have a better mindset, in my opinion.
I think a lot of it has to do with that topic you just brought up, and I know it's a hot topic today in youth sports, multi-sport athletes. We've heard every opinion under the sun. I'd love to get yours, though, because I think swimming in particular, individual sport, it's like a golf or it's like a tennis where you've heard of Tiger Woods training from the time he was 3, and look what he became, and other athletes doing the same thing. But we've heard the flip side where pro athletes have made it to the top, and they've said it's because they played so many sports when they were younger that helped them. What are your thoughts on multi-sport athletes, and is it good for a kid to specialize so early, or should they play, you know, every sport they can?
Oh man, I haven't never actually like thought about it like that. I think that would just be like very individual to like as long as they're having fun and I feel like they're getting rewarded for the work that they put in. I mean, you know, do whatever you want to do, right? There's not. And we got evidence of both works, right?
That's what we say too. I think it usually comes down to, and Matt and I, my producer, hearing so many different thoughts, we usually summarize it to, it's whatever the kid wants and it's whatever is good for the family. Like if it's not good for the family financially to go on all these trips and pay for crazy expensive, you know, tournaments just for one sport, it doesn't make sense. And if the kid's not really that into it, but if the kid loves what they do and it's a huge plus for them to be there, they're the ones telling mom and dad, I want to go to that extra training, that tournament. That's when it's a huge win. But if it's forced and the kid is, you know, probably facing burnout, which is very true, then I think it can be tough nowadays.
Cool, dude. I'll subscribe to that exact idea that you just outlined.
We've heard so many, so it's a good summary. I guess like getting into some of the actual like training techniques, we love to ask like specific things for game days. Obviously, it's race day in swimming, but what are some tips you can give to young athletes to help with maybe race day anxiety or ways to help them prepare for a big race?
Yeah, man. All right, so like is one of my favorite topics, because in a way there's a lot that we can do that works very quickly to kind of calm down the nervous system, but also, right, there's not like a magic switch or whatever when you know this secret technique, then everything is like resolved. It's just it's a process, right? And like in the end of the day, what we want to learn, and I think like as human beings, not just as athletes, is like to be present in a conversation, to be present when we're doing homework, to be present when we're training or competing. So that's kind of, would you kind of resonate with that?
Yeah, I think it depends on, I guess, the kind of race though too. So I think being present, maybe for a big practice or a game, but how would you get a young athlete who's got maybe like the biggest race of their life? Like how do they stay present in that moment, you know? Hard answer, hard question, but
exactly. So big picture, we want to be present. How we do that? So I mean, I had severe performance anxiety, like crazy. And imagine like I'm 6'3" and like I don't know in pounds, but 100 kilos almost, right? So it's like, and then I was scared of racing, which makes no sense because I love racing. I love it, yeah, right. It doesn't make any sense. We love playing, whatever. We love to compete, but then we get scared when it comes. So
yeah.
I had the fortune that at the University of Virginia they hired the sports psychologist of Phelps.
Okay.
When I was there, and I was the first guy who was in his office. Like he just arrived on campus, and he had in his room he had his couch that wasn't set up. It was just on the wall. We sat on the floor, and he started coaching me. Right, so that changed everything for me. And the first thing that we did, I just call it the Michael Phelps breathing technique. It's a simple. So why we start with the breathing technique is because it's very, very easy to do. We can do it all the time. We can do it on a bench, in the call room, in front of the blocks, right? We can do it in the car. We can use it anytime we get nervous. We can use it. The other thing is it will just keep your muscles relaxed by like breathing in a certain way, right? Which is also what we want, because relax means smooth. When we're like tense, even in basketball, right? Things are gonna be different because in practice you're relaxed, and then all of a sudden in competition, right? And the other thing, it will just make you present because you're focused on your breath. You're doing some counting. I'll tell you in a second. And then just all the thoughts, the nagging, the doubting thoughts, the intimidated thoughts, they'll just kind of disappear for a moment. And if they come back, we just do the breathing again. And when they come back, we do it again until we go out and actually perform. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear the breakdown. I'm actually curious.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I would show you, but it's a podcast, so I just got to kind of describe it. But what you do is you want to like be in a confident body posture, okay? It's very important, because if you like go in a winning body posture, you look up, you flex your muscles, and then you try to be sad. Well, you want to try it? Try like, it's like really, really difficult to be sad.
You feel the smile coming.
Exactly. So we do want to be in a confident kind of body posture, and close our eyes and breathe out, exhale all the air until there's no more air in the lungs. Because if you're under stress, you would never, like if there was a real lion showing up in my room, I would never just I would never be here and just exhale all my air, because I would be going, right?
Yeah.
So the body knows, okay, it's safe. The nervous system knows, okay, you can relax. So breathe out all the air, and then on count of 4, you breathe in through the nose, then you hold it for 2, and then on a count of 8, you breathe out through the mouth, and it's going to make a bit of, like a balloon when the air is coming out, like,
yeah.
Right? And then on the bottom, you hold it for 2 again. So it's 4, 2, 8, 2. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And you do that if you got a lot of time. You do it 3 times through, which is about 45 seconds. If you don't have a lot of time, you just do 1 time.
I love that. I don't know if this is good for podcasting, but I kind of want to try that. You said so in for 4, out for 8, and then...
Yeah, in for 4, then hold it for 2, right? And then you breathe out through the mouth for 8. And then hold it for 2. And now the $1 million question is, while you were doing that, did you have any other thoughts other than the counting?
No.
see, right? So that literally, I've done this. I've explained this breathing technique to, like, by now it must be like almost like thousands. And I haven't had I had maybe like 5 that said I had like some other thoughts. Everybody else, like 995, they'll have no thoughts other than the counting while they're doing that, right?
That's amazing.
Which is good, because we're present.
So I guess putting that into action, do you think that really helped you during like big races, and whether it was UVA or beyond?
Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, I got the evidence. And like when I'm coaching, sometimes that's literally, I get on a session with somebody, or like even like a group coaching, because that stuff can be easily taught in a group coaching. And they go and race. And that's the cool thing in swimming. You got the evidence in terms of like the times, right? So it's not like... It's not so subjective. How did you play? It's like, well, that's the time, and either you did it or you didn't. And they drop massive time just because we know they can already do it in training, but then they get so nervous that they can't do it under pressure,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that knot is gone just because of the breathing, and then we're good to go, right? And most of the time that works, not 100%, but I'd say like 85% of the time that works.
Maybe, because I'm actually really curious. Last question on this. What would your thoughts be for like timing of that throughout the day? Would you recommend if you're like, I'm sure it's whenever you're nervous, but a couple times if you're feeling it as like the couple hours leading up to the race happens, or is it like right before the race starts, get a couple in to make sure you're good to go before you jump in the pool? What's your timing with it?
It's a good question. I would do it literally how I use it myself, right? I stand up, change my body when I have a fight with my wife. It's not really a fight, but an argument and stuff. I just like step out. Yeah, right. And do you have a wife? Are you married?
Wife and 2 kids. So yeah, I'm right in
kids.
The same
Beautiful. I literally just like step out, and instead of like reacting, I kind of reset myself with the breathing, and I come back, and I'm like much more relaxed, and the argument doesn't go where I don't want it to go, and where I have to be right, and it's just I would just do it anytime when there's negative, intimidated, scary, nagging, doubting kind of thoughts. I would do, or like angry thoughts, like disempowering thoughts. That's when I would use it, to be honest, and just like stop those from happening, because whatever's coming from those is not going to be where you really want to go, right? It may be good for the ego, but really for your path is not going to be the best thing most of the time. Yeah. So then center yourself, ground yourself, and then come back to it and, look at it again.
Well, I'm actually, of all the things we've learned in the podcast, I think for me personally, it's probably one of the better ones. Just knowing how crazy life gets with work, with family and stuff. Whether it's an athlete or former athlete who can use it in their day to day, I think that technique is super helpful. So I'm glad you shared that one. What about outside of like mental techniques? What about it's a big topic for young athletes today, but nutrition techniques, training. If swimmers are trying to keep weight on during a busy season, what do you recommend for the health side of things?
I'm not a nutritionist, right? So I want to be like I'm always upfront about that. But we did have he was called I forget his name, performance nutritionist of Team USA in swimming, and he came to University of Virginia, and he worked with us for like 2 weeks, first with the group as a whole and then individually. Okay. So I'm just kind of passing on, and like he was really, really good, right? And I'm just kind of passing on to my swimmers what I've learned from him. But I think like one of the things that we were pushing last season with a lot of great outcomes, and we're going to do it again this year, is that they drink carbs while they're practicing, right? So they can go for longer, and then most importantly, right after the workout, like literally like as they're walking to the shower, like as they get out of the pool, because like at Virginia, we had a guy who, he wasn't a coach, he was like a fan, like a big fan. He was like allowed on pool deck, and like his job was to give everybody, so we just get out of the pool dripping wet, and he'd hand everybody a endurance recovery shake. Right, which has
it's a cool job.
I mean, he did some other stuff, but that was like we were kind of required to drink it on the way to the shower, and then 20 minutes later we were in the dining hall eating. So like having the right food, and what I know is like that 3-to-1 ratio, 3 carbs, one protein for swimmers. Yep. That's kind of where we want to be, and then just have them drink that recovery shake, and then get a good nutritionist meal after that, so they can recover. Because a lot of these teenagers, man, I mean, sometimes they like train until 7:00, and then they don't eat until next morning at 8. And I was like, you're trying to recover your body. It's like trying to build a house without bricks.
We had a sports nutritionist on a couple weeks ago. Wendy Earlbeck, she was fantastic. I mean, she was super heavy on some of the supplements too. So I mean, you can get a lot of good stuff with natural food, and you should have that shake. But she recommended a couple of the protein supplements that you should take. She was big on creatine for athletes, especially more so like football, baseball, who are really trying to put on weight. There's a lot you can do nowadays, though, but I think it comes down to the athlete and their goals. That's kind of what everything is subjective. But if somebody's trying to keep weight on, you got to increase the carbs, increase the creatine. But yeah, I think it's kind of all that knowledge is out there. But the fact that you had that from the nutritionist from Team USA, I mean, even though it's not your background, I think that's just like the mental aspect. I mean, that's super helpful for athletes to know. What about outside of tips, David? So you had a great career. Now you're in the coaching world. I guess what's like one of the main messages that you try to share to young athletes to, besides just typical training, what should they watch out for or try to like landmines to navigate in today's youth sports aspect? Because it has changed a lot since even I was a kid. What's like a big landmine to navigate nowadays?
Dude, frickin' social media, phone, gaming, that kind of stuff. All that like online stuff, Some of the stuff is good. But when you understand that, and a lot of teenagers, I don't know if they're like really know. I know the parents know, but like all that social media stuff is designed to glue them to their phone for as long as humanly possible, right? That's the only goal, because that's how they make money. And so the algorithm is going to feed them, some of the stuff that would actually be beneficial for them, but they're just consuming content without any like intention behind it. And they're just like scrolling, or they're gaming and stuff. And like if you want to run like a social media account and share your story and stuff, that's great, right? It's a different, but if you're just consuming this stuff, and that's why I think sports is like one of the last things where they have a chance to go out in the real world and like actually, develop some life skills, not just physical and technical in terms of the sport, but it's also like the mental skills that come with it, like the resilience, the confidence, the focus, the time management. Like there's so many of those, right? And I think that is like swimming or like competitive sports is one of the best, if not the best, life school that they can have at that age. And if they love the sport, I just want to do everything that I can to like give them the tools so they can have like a rewarding, like a journey. There's going to be a lot of frustration and stuff and a lot of hard stuff, but like, it makes them stronger for the future. That's kind of how I see it. I'd be curious to hear your point on that too.
I've seen the attention span and kind of like the lack of confidence be a big thing nowadays. Maybe it's just me as an athlete. When I was younger, things were different, but I didn't have so much outside noise. I wasn't able to watch the top highlights of every high school athlete, college athlete, pro athlete, and compare myself to them. So I just kind of showed up to the court and I was who I was. But I think a lot of kids nowadays, they see those things on social media and they think that they should be there by the time they're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And no one really is, except for like a very small percentage. But if you see that, you want to be that, and you're not there, you're upset with yourself, or your confidence drops. So I don't know. I think having each kid go on their journey, especially with the way the kids develop too. I mean, you've probably seen it in swimming in particular, but bodies, minds, like it takes a while to get through, the full development process as a young athlete. If you're not, when you're 18, you're way different than when you were when you were 14. And I've seen the flip. Some of the best 14-year-old basketball players don't even play in college, and vice versa. So I think, treating each kid individually, keeping their confidence high. I think that's why I love coaching and why we love doing what we do. Because a lot of kids have the talent, but if they're not pointed in the right direction, it's kind of hard to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, man, I've seen something from I forget his name. Really like kind of famous. I should know his name, but I don't remember. A sports psychologist. He's old now, and he said on a scale from 1 to 10, you have about, I think it was 1 to 6 maybe as like talent, and then if you have enough talent, after that it's all character.
That definitely wasn't my dad, but my dad when I was younger would always, I remember when I was in 8th grade, he would like build a little pyramid for me. He's like, you can eventually get to this point with your basketball talent, but he's like, does not matter after that. He's like, everyone's going to be just as good, if not better than you. It's that top, it's all mental, and that's what you have to worry about when you get to high school and college. So that always stuck with me, that someone's always going to be more talented than you, but if you can have the mental piece, you can usually be competitive or at least get to where you want to be. So, What about from the kids that you coach now, David? Any like big time success stories? It sounds like you coach a lot of talented kids if you're coaching juniors, but what are one of the maybe not even like where they've been, but what's one of the most impactful like training sessions you've had or impactful journeys you've had with a young athlete who you've helped get to where they want to be?
Yeah, man. So we just had a camp, right? We had 35 teenage swimmers, and we took them to the Canary Islands, like Spain. Really beautiful, a super summer vibe. And for example, we did a couple things on the second practice. We gave them a team challenge, and we said, okay, as a team, you must complete that challenge as fast as you can. Okay, I'm not going to go into details because if you're not a swimmer, it's like a lot of underwaters holding your breath and stuff. And they finished it in like 8.5 minutes. And we did something else for like 20 minutes, and then we came back and we gave them the same challenge, and all we said is like, okay, you as a team, you must beat the time that you just did 20 minutes ago. And they went like a minute faster, right? From like 8:30 to 7:30. I'm like, okay, your skills didn't improve in those 20 minutes. You actually should be more tired, but still you're doing a lot better, right? And so we started to like give them these like little aha moments that a lot of like when they think they're doing the best, they're actually not. It's just that they have to find like a mental switch. And so we started like teaching them a little bit. And then after day 4 or something, we did some races for time. And there was this guy, he came to us in the 100 fly long course. He was like a 104 or something was his PB. And then he did a race for time after training like 4 days in a row, doubles. And it's the beginning of the season and all that, right? And he went like a 101. He went a 3-second PB, and a PB that he did 2 weeks earlier at a competition. So it's just these little things. And then seeing him touch the wall, he was very excited to hear the time. We yelled it out, and he go, the fist, so had that happy face with just like a little bit of course we did some good work on the turns and on the waters and stuff, but also like that mentality to like show up, and it didn't take much. It's just like little pieces, it's not like hour-long meditations. It's just little pieces that can use without, we call it no extra time, and just they integrate these little things into what they're already doing and just change their behavior a little bit, get a result, and then they start becoming very curious and they start to do more about that. Because, dude, I tried to give him like a morning routine, an evening routine, and a meditation, and it's like, they do it for 2 days, and then and I'm the same, right? I'm not gonna, like, my coach giving me stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it, and then I don't, because it takes too much time.
Yeah.
Life is busy, right? Kids is crying, whatever.
What about, maybe not that kid, sounds like he's got a fantastic attitude. How do you help athletes who maybe have bad attitudes, or they're super talented but they don't have the right mindset? Is there a way to help them overcome that? Because I'm sure a lot of parents deal with that with their own kids.
I mean, I would hope so. So we always try. It's like, I think where they are right now is not as important as observing when we do give them like inputs and we work with them a little bit to see the rate of change. So, right? Because like it becomes very frustrating if you like keep working with somebody, you just see no change. If they're either they don't understand, and at that point, I would say like, okay, it's my fault. I haven't explained it well and stuff. But there's just some kids. It's rare though where you just see no improvement. But usually, I mean, it doesn't matter so much where they are. It's like as long as they're like willing, and you can kind of see, okay, they're struggling with all of that stuff. You just got to meet them where they are, and then kind of start building. Yeah. And then once they start building, they go like, that was pretty cool, right? That kind of creates a fire inside of them, and they become curious, and all of a sudden they come to us asking questions, and hey, I noticed it, and it's like, okay, then you got it.
You got it built to that point, though, like you said. You can't just expect a kid to be there in the first lesson or the first training session. I think I've seen that a lot, too, with athletes who come in, maybe not completely motivated for one reason or other, but if you stick with them and kind of help them see like their own journey along, like each individual lesson getting a little bit better, you're not going to become, for basketball at least, like a Steph Curry or a LeBron overnight, but it takes time. I think attitudes can improve when you show a kid that like your work will pay off. They just have to know that it's worthwhile to show up every single time and do the work with you.
Yeah. And tell me if I agree with that, but like in life in general, not just in swimming, before you can be good at something, you have to kind of suck at it, or even completely suck at it. And before something is easy, it has to be hard, right? And so if it's hard for them right now, or for me in my life, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm in the beginning, and it has to be that way. And then just that understanding, it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Whether it's a business, athletics, academics, like you will not be a pro. I just don't think kids know that nowadays, though. Like they always want to be pros from the jump. So if you can get that mindset across to a kid, it's going to help them not just in high school or college or pro sports, but it's going to help them in life. They'll have that mindset when they're 30 to 80, working a job or building a family. Even building a family, same thing. I'm sure you're in the same boat as me, but wife, kids, you're not the best husband when you start. You're not the best dad when your first child, is born to you. But you kind of figure it out. You get better. You learn. So, I think giving yourself a bit of grace too is important.
Yeah, self-love and stuff. I mean, imagine becoming a dad, but instead of having a baby, you're having like a 15-year-old revolting, let's say for us men, like a girl, let's say, right? It's like, oh my, like you wouldn't survive. I mean, like you would go nuts. Like, you have to.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a process. You got to stick with it. I think one of the last questions I had, David, and I'd love to ask this one. You probably touched on pieces throughout the interview, which we could obviously share, but if you could go back in time to yourself in Switzerland, maybe you're 13, 14, super talented swimmer, what is one thing you would tell David at that age that you know now that you've learned along the way, but you obviously didn't know back then?
Oh man, that is such a good question. So I always use that in the, when I like sell, and I kind of like, I sell mental training, okay, but really like I see it as a mission to kind of just tell the story, because I learned this stuff when the sports psych of Phelps came. Here's what he drew a ladder for me, okay? It has a left leg, a right leg, and it has this middle part. And then he drew like a heart. That's like kind of where you want to go to, right? Like your next goal or whatever. And then he said there's only 3 things that we can train as swimmers, but it applies to like all sports, like when you think about it. The first leg is you can train your body, okay? That would be your endurance, it would be your strength, your explosiveness, and all that. The second thing you can train is your technique, right? That would be in basketball with shooting and stuff, or dribbling, and then swimming, it's like your high catch, your underwater, stuff like that. And then the third thing, and that's the last thing that you can train, is your mind. And that's the only three things that you can train. And so what he said is that we need to have all three at a high level at the same time to reach that next level of success. Because, like, I'll give you an example. If you have if your body is let's say you're mentally the strongest kid in the world, you got great technique and everything, but you got a broken shoulder or you got the flu, it's not going to work out so well, right? Yep. If you're mentally super strong, your body's in great shape, but you just change your technique, or you just don't know how to handle a ball, or don't know how to do a flip, it's also not going to go very well. Yep. Right? And then the third case, which was my case, was that my body was in great shape. My technique was good. Maybe it wasn't world class, but it was totally capable of the next level of success. How did I know? Because I got it in training, right? But then in competition, my mind broke down, right? And so I was limited by my mind. And so that would be the advice, to investigate that there is more than what you think. And the mind is, for me, everything starts with the mind. And when I think now I have the proof, because I read so many autobiographies, so many podcasts and YouTube videos, and they all say the same thing. It's not like you get good and then you build the mindset. It is you continue to build, but you have a great mindset with a dream, and that's why you become good.
I don't think many athletes know that nowadays, and that was not prevalent. I know when I was younger. I mean, training, it was all about just basketball. It helped. I think nutrition was becoming a big part of it when I was younger, but nobody talked about the mental side of basketball when I was 15, 16. So I think if athletes can understand that now, and parents in particular too, knowing that it's a big part of their child's development, I think a lot of them, whether they make college or pro or not, they'll be a lot better off in the long run. So that's great advice, man.
Yeah, not just sports, right? It's and also what you learn on the court or in the pool, that kind of, when you're done with your career, that kind of stays there, unless you become a coach or something. But the mental skills that you've learned and experienced to handle adverse situations and challenges, and in teamwork and all that stuff, that is with you for the rest of your life. And I feel just that in itself makes it worth investigating, at least, right?
For sure. I mean, it's the one that the word we use a lot in the Philadelphia where I'm from is just grit. You got to be gritty, and you get that from sports, because you're never going to win every race. You're never going to be the best, when you start. But if you keep pushing and stick with it, no matter where you land, you'll have those, those skills and those qualities all the way through 20s, 30s, 40s. So, but I think it's the biggest thing. A lot of athletes, and I've seen them too, they don't realize if you give up along the way, you don't wind up getting the full value of all those traits and qualities that you could. So, and I've seen a lot of talented athletes just kind of give up in high school, give up in college, not make that final push, and it's just sad to watch sometimes. But if you can help a kid get there, I think it's one of the coolest things. Yeah. So, well, David Mallory, this was a ton of fun. I'm excited to share it, and in particular that Michael Phelps. Is it his patented, or is it he just the most known?
No, it's just I call it that because in the Olympics 2012, we were in the call room together for the 200 IM, and it was funny because he didn't know who I was, but obviously I knew who he was, right? And so I sat down in the plastic chair in the call room and stuff, and I stand up and I do my breathing technique. And he looks at me and he laughs a little bit, and then he stands up and he does the exact same thing, because we got it from the same guy. So that's why I just call it, Michael Phelps breathing technique, because he uses it all the time.
That's amazing, man. Well, we're definitely going to quote it as the Michael Phelps training technique. That's he's got the name to back it up. We're definitely going to share that and everything else, man. I think a lot of parents and athletes, again, we have an audience of about 100,000 followers. If they, no matter what sport they're in, if they hear this, take the tips home that you share here today, I think a lot of kids and parents will be better off. So, again, appreciate your time, man. It was a lot of fun chatting, and excited to share it.
Thanks for having me, and you're a great host, man.
Thanks, David. I'll end it here.